Hi, I'm Bob McCoskrie. Welcome to Straight Talk. And tonight the panelists are going to make their prediction for the next president of the US. Is it going to be Biden or Trump? Will hold them to their prediction. The Greens have a new co-leader and some internal problems. Is the government gunning for the charitable status of churches? And are the wheels finally coming off the transgender movement as it relates to children? If we have time, we'll comment on an interesting poll on slipping support for gay marriage. But without further ado, let's meet our panel for tonight. And it's a handsome lot. Starting in the top left there is Barry Crump. Nope, sorry, it's Rodney Hyde. Rodney Hyde, welcome from the outbacks of somewhere. Where are you?
Central Otago. I've got to get in the car to get a signal.
Okay. Oh, that's good. You can listen to the radio and keep us in touch with any breaking news. Just to the right, coming from the Hawke's Bay is Ashley Church. Nice to have you back, Ashley.
Just to the right, I liked that. Hey, I noticed, and some other people here too will know this. There's somebody on Facebook who's imitating you at the moment and pretending to be you. And I have to say, so far he's proven to be a much more pleasant character. He doesn't post as much, and his pictures are better.
And way more popular. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, my wife loves them. Okay, and Christine Rankin, first time for 2024. Welcome back. The power's on at your place. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much. It is. Everything's calm tonight. It's very dark. I see where Rodney is. It's light, but here it's very dark and a bit chilly.
Okay. Well, it is autumn.
Lovely to be back.
Okay, and Simon O'Connor, nice to have you back 3 weeks in a row. This is... I don't know, when I did the roster, I really picked on you, didn't I? Oh, your mic's not on, Simon. There we are. So you're used to Parliament turning it on for you.
Yeah, look, I'm just such a humble guy. I'm just trying to mute myself. I've got nothing of value to say.
Well, I thought it was the best thing I'd ever heard you say, so well done. Anyway, and a special welcome to Mum, Ala Pomelile. How are you, Ala?
Evening, everybody.
Tell us a little bit, give us a little skite about Samuel. Go on.
Right. My wee boy, named Samuel, is 6 months this week. I'm here physically, but inside my eyes are closed because it's about bedtime and I've got the baby cam right next to my laptop just in case chaos breaks out upstairs. So he's well, we're well. Thank you for keeping us in your prayers. It's nice to be back, but I'm hopefully going to bed after this.
Fantastic. And finally, Reverend Dr. Michael Reid. This is your first one as well, Michael. Nice to have you.
Thank you, Bob. It's nice to be here and it's good to see you, and g'day to all the other panellists. And I don't have a baby monitor here.
Okay, no, just as well. You're way too old for that. All right, team, just before we get into the topics that we talked about, the media has only been talking about one thing today, and I'm interested just to get your quick feedback, and that is Deputy Prime Minister and New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters. In his speech yesterday, he compared co-governance to Nazi Germany. It was a fiery State of the Nation speech, and if you looked at the media, all our independent media all picked the same line as the lead of their media coverage. Now, what did he actually say? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's just find out.
And the insidious creep of racist co-governance that has spread through legislation and the public sector. Everywhere. All the way to the real estate licensing provisions. Everywhere. Manipulated. No manifesto coverage, no campaign, just under the radar, dirt of this type. And what were the media saying about it? Deafening zero. And ladies and gentlemen, we're never going to make it out of this demise if we tolerate that sort of behaviour. Over and over again. Or when you have the audacity to say there's something dramatically wrong here, not just about the policy but about their lack of warning, they shout racist. Not just ideological theory, it was race-based theory, where some people's DNA made them, sadly, according to these people, and condoned by their cultural fellow travellers, their DNA made them somehow better than others. I've seen that sort of philosophy before. I saw it in Nazi Germany. We all did. We've seen it elsewhere around the world in the horrors of history. But here, right in our country, and tolerated by people whose job was to keep the system honest, this happened.
All right. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said the comments weren't helpful, but he rightly said, I thought, quote, I've seen Chris Hipkins refer to our government as a dictatorship. I've seen the Maori Party refer to us as white supremacists who have some sort of genocide agenda. I don't think any of that inflammatory language is very helpful at all. So, panel, I'm just interested in a quick answer. Are there any wins in introducing the Nazi imagery when you're talking about politics? Rodney, I'm going to start with you because you're top left. Oh, you just dropped your phone. There we go.
He's been taken out.
No, I hadn't realised that Winston was so old when he said that he saw it in Nazi Germany. But there you go. He's a big winner out of this. And Winston's a master at it. He knows it's hyperbolic. He knew that it would be picked up. And he's got fantastic coverage off it. And, of course, he's right. He's right in the sense that the Nazis, and as you said, lots of other governments, have used policies based on race. And, of course, that's what co-governance and what we're seeing right through New Zealand is. It's actually, there's a different rule depending on your race. Now, the media went on to say that he was comparing New Zealand to the Holocaust, the last government to the Holocaust. He wasn't doing anything of the sort. He was making a dramatic hyperbolic point about race-based policies, and he's a big winner from this. He's got lots of coverage, and he's making a point. I just wish he'd do something about it.
Okay. Ashley, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, there's a great Ricky Gervais, one of his very early comedies, where he talks about the History Channel. Most of its programming in those days was about sharks and Nazis. And the point he was making was that sharks were scary and so were Nazis. And if you use the word Nazi, it was designed to inflame. So Rodney's right in that respect. That's exactly what he's been trying to do. But I don't think he made the connection with us. I don't think the connection was as clear as he suggests it was. Hey, and more to the point for me, and this is really important, the previous government was a government of division. It was a government that split this country down the middle. This should be the government that brings us back together. This should be the government that's doing everything that it can to make us one people and united again. And you don't do that by attacking the very people that you're trying to bring back into the camp. So I think this is a fail.
Okay. Christine, do you think it was more he just wanted to have a real blast at the media more than the concept itself? You know, he was questioning their coverage of it.
I think he was serious about the concept, but of course he would be having a blast at the media. And, you know, I think it's amazing that the left can say whatever they like, and they say some absolutely disgusting things about everybody else, and nobody runs it. No fuss is made about it at all. But, yeah, he was being provocative, and look at the coverage it's got. And as we've said, that's probably what he wanted. Remember also his age, because I'm getting up there too, and I remember my parents telling me all the time about the war and how if you ignore evil, you know, if you don't stamp on it as soon as you see it, and I'm not saying that co-governance is evil, but I bet that's where he's coming from. He's thinking if we don't talk about it and we don't do something about it now, then it will get out of control and that will damage our country. And I agree with Ashley, we've got to bring people together. What happened with the last government was just sad, and it's left such a legacy because people out there are angry, and that's why I said it, and that's why he's pressed the perfect button, because a lot of people believe that kind of stuff.
Okay, Simon, I know you're a big supporter in the Jewish community. What do you think? Is it appropriate, or do you just leave those types of comparisons out?
I'm one for leaving them out. Things like particularly the Holocaust are a particular event. They're not universal. In other words, people trying to take terms like Holocaust or even the realm of Nazism to explain other things, it doesn't work for me. But it's classic Winston. As Rodney and others have said, he's getting lots of attention. He's got the Prime Minister now racing after him to have a chat. So classic Winston. But I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary. It sits within that wider framework. And we're seeing it more and more now of these hyperbolic inflammatory statements. Everyone's a fascist or an extremist or a Nazi. Very, very unhelpful. And the other point I'd very quickly make is we've got so many substantial things going on at the moment. Police not being paid enough, the Chinese communists visiting the country. And all we're talking about is Winston and his drinking habits versus that of Chris Hipkins. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you've been reading my emails, I think, because, fascist, Nazi, right-winger, I've been called all those things. So, you can clear the rest of my emails if you want. Ala, should we be concerned, or is this just typical political bluster?
Yeah, it seems like it is, and it's just media versus Uncle Winnie. Obviously, both camps have it out for each other, and it's unfortunate of the content of what's being discussed. But as everyone said, it's classic Winston. So I don't know if he's caught their attention. They've played into it. We need more action. Actually, there's lots of talking, not enough action. So I think to echo what Rodney said, there's enough of the yapper and get on with the doing.
Okay, and finally, Michael.
Yeah, well, look, it is everyone. I agree with everyone else. It is classic Winston. It's what he does, and he gets headlines and he gets traction from it. But it's not helpful to make reference to the Nazis and the Holocaust. But he actually didn't refer to the Holocaust. That's what the media's done. And let's remember that the left is always making reference to Nazis. Think of the Posey Parker rallies, where the mainstream media consistently referred to her meetings in Australia as being attended by neo-Nazis. And the whole implication, of course, was that she herself is a neo-Nazi, so therefore she has to be rejected. So the left is very quick to appropriate that highly emotive reference. I agree, though, with what Simon said. It's not helpful, really. But in a free and open society, you should be able to talk about it without being slapped with a label. But I think this is Winston on his soapbox. And as others have said, he's really, and the left-wing media has flocked to it. So he's the winner, really. He certainly is.
Yeah, Labour leader Chris Hipkins said that Kiwis deserve better than a Deputy Prime Minister who behaves like a drunk uncle at a wedding. And Winston was on the platform this morning, and he actually gave a little funny response, which I'll just play to you.
When he can tell me what a woman is, I'll start taking this guy seriously. That's number one. Number two, I ruled the Labour Party out a year before he even opened his stuttering mouth. Again, the chronology backs me up. And the third thing I'm going to say to him is, I know your type. You probably get drunk on a wine biscuit.
Okay, so that was really mature. There was, I would just like to note before we leave this topic, there was one good thing that Winston did say in his State of the Union speech, and this was it.
And on education and health, we're going to go back to a curriculum on academic achievement and not ideology, including the removal and replacement of gender sexuality. And relationship-based education guidelines.
Yep. There we are. So that is the good news. He's still saying that it is going to go back to, they're going to get rid of RSE. So I guess the key is, especially for parents watching, that we need to keep the pressure on and make sure they do that, because the media is working hard to kind of change that. All right, team, let's move on to our first topic. And it's official. Biden and Trump are set for a rematch of 2020. Now, the polling is very interesting. The Harris X polling conducted in the days following Biden's State of the Union address, Trump is leading Biden by 5 percentage points. A recent USA Today survey found that 49% of voters approve of the job Trump did as president. Only 41% approve of Biden's performance. A Rasmussen Report survey showed Trump is not only leading Biden 49-41, but he's also leading the other possible Biden replacements. He actually leads Michelle Obama 50-43 and Gavin Newsom, the California governor, by a whopping 51-34. And lastly, a Harvard-Harris poll released last month put Biden's approval rating at 45%. Nearly half of voters say he's become worse as a leader. Although none of us have noticed that, of course, have we, team? Okay, so the fun question is, who are you predicting to win? We're going to note down the result, team, because I'm going to come back to this in November. So I'll start at the bottom this time. We'll go in reverse order. Michael, who are you predicting to win the presidential election?
Well, it's not much of a choice, is it? You've got a non-compos mentis individual and a totally bombastic one. But I actually think the way it's going, Bob, I think it'll be Trump. There we
And
are.
on what basis? I mean, are they just people going to forget all the bombacity of the 4 years ago, and they're just going to say, look, it's better than what we got at the moment?
Well, it's probably the lesser of two evils, isn't it? I mean, at least you know what you're getting. Look, it's utterly extraordinary. I mean, in so-called normal times, no one like Trump would ever get to this place and to this point. But these are not ordinary times, Bob. And the wokest stuff that we talk about on this program and other independent media is talking about, I mean, it's on steroids in America. And Trump, for all his follies and all his idiocies, actually does, really articulate a conservative heart. And I think if Joe Biden was probably 30 years younger and actually could remember things, he might stand a good chance. But I actually think, and I'm saying this not with personal support for Trump, but if it comes down to those two, I actually think Trump will win the day. Okay,
Ala, so I've put you down for Trump. Michael, we'll hold you to that. Ala, who are you picking? And why?
I think it's Trump. No particular reasons, but from what I can see, it seems like everyday Americans are just fed up with the Democrats and their lunacy or delusional, drinking from that delusional Gatorade. So, my sister lives in Arkansas, and even she and her and my brother-in-law are saying that people are getting fed up with what they're seeing on the ground from this current government. And the fact, I think Trump, I may get this wrong, but I think he won in California, which is historically Democrat. So that for me was pretty telling, but my money's on Trump. Not that I personally support him, but if I was to put a wager, it would be behind him.
Okay, Simon, who are you picking?
Ralph Nader.
Good memory. Yeah. Can you explain for all the very young people watching who Ralph Nader is?
He was the sort of a third candidate that came through decades ago. Never won, of course, but Americans very much divided between Republican and Democrat. But he provided a third way and a little bit of novelty. Look, I think Trump is going to win. I think he'll win actually relatively comfortably for the American system. Look, they're both crazy candidates for different reasons. I think it's a sad state of a wonderful country that's the two best they can put forward. But if you have to pick between the two of them, it'll be Trump. One of the reasons is this is the consequence of the ever-increasing polarization in politics. And the more polarized it becomes, the more the pendulum swings hard. So as all the lefties and others try to support Biden for the reasons they do, there's going to be the flip out to the other side. So it's a worrying trend. But the other is just simply the economy. Actually, it's those basic concepts. And at the end of the day, from what I'm seeing and reading, Americans are concerned about the economy, and they think the Republicans will do better. They're concerned about the illegal migrants crossing the border and so forth. And that's what they'll be voting on. So perhaps put it this way, Bob, a lot of people will hang up their concerns about the moral failings and otherwise, that bombacity of Trump, but back his approach to the border, the economy, and so forth.
Okay, 3-0 so far. Christine, are you going to go against the flow?
Oh, well, look, as the others have said, amongst billions of people, how did we end up with two half-wits? But that's what you've got. But I think...
Are you talking about the panel?
No. I think that Trump will win. When on days that I feel quite mean sometimes when I watch Biden over and over again falling off stages and not being able to find the lectern. And, how could you possibly vote for somebody that can't even finish a sentence? It's got to be Trump, even though I have no time for him at all. Well, he can be entertaining at times, but that's not what we're looking for, is it?
No. Okay. Ashley?
Yeah, but pretty much parallel everybody else. Your choices between a man in his advanced stages of dementia and Biden, or a thoroughly revolting individual in the form of Trump. And what worries me about it, not worries me because who are we? We're sitting in New Zealand. sort of safely away from this, but we talk about Trump in terms that he's a revolting individual, but he's going to win. Americans don't think of him that way. Those who support him think he's absolutely wonderful. And I think he's going to, it's not even going to be close. It's going to be a landslide. It's interesting, though, when you look at the problems he's got to address, and it's not just the stuff around wokeism and some of the other stuff. I saw a very interesting meme the other day that described the American economy as if it was a household budget, and it indicated that household budget needed to save, I think, $15,000 per year to balance the budget. And at the moment, it had made cuts of about $38. And that puts the American economy into context. And I don't know whether Trump can fix that either, but they've got major issues and strange men to supposedly lead them through it.
Okay. And finally, Rodney, you still there? Oh, yeah, there he is.
I'm still here, and I'm like everyone else, but I'm different in one sense. Trump will win, and I support him. I'm a big Trump supporter, and the key thing will be whether they can maintain the US voting system to its normal level of cheating and not have the great level of mail-in voting that occurred last time. He should win if they can manage the election a little bit better. Of course, there's cheating in every US election, the way the system is set up, but Trump should win. And I think he is the most gifted communicator I have ever seen. He has a way of speaking and connecting to people that is I've never seen in my lifetime. And we can see that because it's not just support because the other guy's a cadaver. It's actually a genuine support for him because he's speaking to people, and it's a remarkable skill because here he is as a billionaire from New York, speaking to down and out people in Arkansas.
Yep. Okay, you're not sitting on a main highway with a camera in your back window, are you, Rodney? Because it's like just looks really dodgy. You're not speed camera, are you?
Oh, it's really everything's dodgy.
Just down in the south. Okay, team, let's check what.
And by the way, Bob, you haven't given us your prediction.
Yeah.
No, Trump, just based on the polls, and I just think Biden is doing such a terrible job that he's going to suffer what Labor did in the last election, and that is that his supporters are not going to show up to the polls. They've been motivated previously, but they're just not going to show up because they don't want to vote for Trump, but they don't want to vote for Biden. So now, just an interesting point, though. I just want to have a look at this. So a couple of messages come through. Somebody has said he's got a Trump book on his bookshelf. That's
I've also
Ashley.
got an Obama book up there, so I'm and a whole range of other stuff. So don't judge me by what's on my bookshelf. I'm a wide reader of stuff that I don't necessarily agree with.
Okay, we'll forgive you. Jason says this panel has not seen his rallies. That's true. Have any of you guys been to one of his rallies? There's supposed to be something. Storm says, did I send that through? Yeah. He actually was competent in terms of fulfilling his political promises, and I honestly don't think he is revolting either. Is that Biden or Trump? I think it was Trump, eh?
Trump.
Yeah.
That's my use of the word revolting, which I don't resolve from at all.
Right. Jason says, it's an uppercase, so I better shout, Trump forever! Trump gets things done for the people! Rosie says, no, Bob, Christine is referring to Trump and Biden. Oh, was that when you were talking about people being half-brained? Yeah, okay. Sorry, Rosie, I thought it might be the panel. Bill says, I'd rather see a debate between Trump and Kennedy, who is the Ralph Nader for this election, isn't he, Simon? Although I don't think he's going to get anywhere.
Don't forget Boris is coming back too.
Oh, Boris, that's right.
Boris is back.
Yeah. Ms. H. Burnett says, I'm here. Nice to see you, Ms. H. Burnett. That's lovely. Leslie B. the Dapper Kiwi says, if New Zealand First wasn't there, we would have the same progressive ideas and policies, possibly. Fale says, shot Uncle Winnie. Elliot makes a very good point. He says, Christine's backdrop is looking quite boss elegance.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah, but I can still see the ironing board in the background, Christine.
I have to admit to everyone watching, I had to move the ironing board. I do iron. Or my husband.
No, it's
as
not.
well.
It's Kim that does it. I know the truth. And Aaron says media said they wouldn't report on Winston. Meanwhile, Winston played them like a fiddle. He certainly knows how to get coverage. Right, let's continue. There's a new co-leader of the Greens. It is our good friend Chlöe Swarbrick. And just to prove it, here we are. That was taken back in 2018, just before we went on Q&A. So contrary to popular belief, we are good friends. Well, until the Q&A debate on legalising cannabis, and then it was all downhill from there. This photo was taken before the debate. But under the rules for the Greens, these are the rules for the leaders of the co-leaders of the Greens. So it's no longer necessary for male, female. Don't be so binary. So you've got to have a woman, someone of any gender, someone who identifies as Māori, and you don't have to have a male. So, sorry about that, Ashley. You're never going to be the co-leader of the Greens again. And here was Chloe's announcement about the government that is so conservative and bullies.
I want New Zealanders to take back their power and their control and to hold this government to account just as much as we are, because that's the only way that we're going to stop their incredibly conservative and regressive shredder of an agenda.
Terrible.
The bully boy behaviour of this government.
Yeah, bully boy behaviour. Interestingly enough, doing noddies in the background was actually Green Party MP Darling Tana, who was suspended amid migrant exploitation allegations. Now, important to note, team, that these are allegations, not proven, but there is questions about how much the Greens knew and how much they released when they knew it. Tana becomes the third Green MP in less than a year to run into trouble, following in the footsteps of Elizabeth Kerekere, who quit the party amidst bullying allegations, and Golriz Garaman, who resigned after the shoplifting, plus the shenanigans of Chloe and Marama saying from the river to the sea, and Marama's cis white male comments at Posey Parker. So, Greens, I'm just interested to know, are the Greens in good health? Is Chloe going to benefit, grow or hinder the Green vote? And Simon, you spent the last 12 years in the same house as the Greens, so I'm interested to know what you think.
Oh, I'm just a broken man.
You'll never be a co-leader.
Look, a couple of thoughts. It was entirely predictable that Chloe would eventually become the leader. She is the darling of media, and her image and voice is amplified free of charge, courtesy of the media just about every day of every week. So it was an inevitability. I don't think she will actually help grow the Greens. She appeals to some of the core Green voters, but she's not going to appeal to the wider sector. I don't see her bringing any new people in. And I think ultimately we're just going to see the Greens get pulled more and more into that woke, progressive, ultra-left, whatever you want to call it, philosophies, obsessions with death, obsessions with drugs, obsessions with everyone else's children. And that's not going to sit well with most Kiwis who, again, are worried about healthcare and their economy and so forth. The final thing I'd suggest is I think there's going to be a fight at the end of the day, not physical, better be clear on that, but a fight between her and Marama Davison. Sort of two elements of the identity politics spectrum. They'll be vying to be the greater victim, and they'll be trying to compete with one another in that space. And I don't think it will end well, particularly with Marama wanting to insist on her whakapapa, the Māori connection. But the only really quick thing I will say as another Green MP falls, bad as it is, you'll have noticed I think most of the other political parties haven't made any comment. I can think of the National Party just a few years ago who were losing MPs left, right and centre with one scandal after another. So I suppose just a tale of caution to listeners and viewers that while some might delight in what they're seeing, many political parties, including the one I was involved with, have also had similar, if not sometimes even worse, scandals.
Yeah. Rodney, you were in Parliament when it seemed like the Greens were a little bit more focused on the environment and a little bit more moderate. Have you been surprised to see just kind of how radical they have come, especially around the social issues?
No, not at all. I think it's. I knew Jeanette Fitzsimons and Rod Donald for 30, 40 years, and they were hardcore socialists / communists first, environmentalists second. They were just operating in an environment where they were more cautious. We're now living in an environment where you can actually, speak more freely about the things that the Greens are now talking of. So I didn't regard the Greens back in the day as caring about the planet. They were always ideological, they were always totalitarian, and they always wanted government control. And concerns about the environment was just a means of getting there. I actually disagree. I think Chlöe is a very gifted politician. And I think, barring accidents like a breakdown, she will be like Jacinda Ardern, perhaps even a bit better. And I think she will lift the Greens. And the problem that we have is that we don't appreciate that what she says, a large chunk of young people absolutely agree with. And they will take their lead from her. And she will form their opinions. And the fact that you only have to look at, say, from the river to the sea, and that a party and an MP can survive that means just how far we've descended in terms of rational debate and thinking straight about the issues that concern us. Think about it. She was calling for the destruction of Israel and got promoted. So that tells you a lot. And of course, as has been pointed out by Simon, to the media, the people that in the media who are reporting her agree with her. And they are activists. And so she's a good fit. She's like Jacinda Ardern. Everyone wrote Jacinda Ardern off. They were wrong to do so.
Okay, well, it's the younger generation women that are particularly attracted to the Greens, so let me go to one. Ala, what is it about the Greens that's attractive to the younger generations?
I must be an old soul then. And Chlöe she's a great campaigner. She is very savvy on social media. She knows how to capture a room. She knows I hate using this word, or maybe it's not in, hip with young people. She's pretty galvanizing.
Oh, there we go. Maybe I think maybe little Samuel has tripped over the internet cord and disconnected her. Okay, we'll try and get her back on. Let's keep going, Michael. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, Bob, when you pick celery and it's nice and crisp and it's juicy, it'll stay that way for a little while. But then when you put it in the larder, it goes stringy and really limp. And this is where I think the Greens are at the moment. I mean, just a whole constellation of issues for them with their personnel and their MPs. But look, I agree with the others. I think Chlöe certainly appeals to a younger constituency. Will she bolster the Greens? I don't know. She seems to be pretty popular in her electorate. But I agree with Rodney. These people, even going back to Fitzsimons and Rod Donald and the Values Party, they're hard socialists. They're anarchists, actually. They want to destroy the very system that has put them in place. And this is true for the Māori Party leaders as well. They're putting their hand out for very good salaries, and yet everything they say is really to undermine the very system that's paying them. Now, I agree with others too, that the environmentalist, or that facade of an environmentalist concern, is really evaporating. And, picking up things like the Palestinian cause, hard climate change stuff and climate hysteria, they're just Green Labour Party, really, and they are hard socialists. And despite her ability to articulate, her youthful appearance, you can think on her feet and capture an audience and all those things. I'm reluctant to agree with Rodney, but I think he's probably right. if she plays her cards well, she could be on the up. And the way MMP works in its funny ways, she could be a potential leader in a government somewhere down the line. That would be a scary thought. But yeah, so will she bolster them? Perhaps, because she's got a very adoring media, of course, mainstream media, who will not criticise her or some of these other things that have happened in the Green Party, some of them tragic, of course, but some of them just plain awful, and they seem to get off pretty lightly.
Yeah, we saw that during the cannabis debate, that's for sure. Ali, nice to have you back. You've paid the internet bill now. You were just finishing your statement. What's the attraction of the Greens to younger generations and especially women?
That's what I thought about. I just wanted to disappear.
It worked.
Yeah, I think, as I said, Chlöe's quite captivating. She's a great campaigner. I think anyone that's campaigning on drugs is going to capture most young people's attention in this stage of life, unfortunately. But she's also, she's witty, she's quick on her feet. She has leadership capabilities that will be tested with recent scandals. And she's also quite performative, which I personally think the Green Party of today is there. I don't see them as politicians. I see them as performers. And if you look at what they're involved in. So all the recent scandals is, I think I said to Bob, is basically diversity high has gone wrong. So, and it's unfortunate that they're also women too, because we've got great female politicians of colour as well. And if anything, it just shows that the Green Party is not a party of transparency or integrity. So will Chlöe bring that back? Highly doubt it, but she's got her followers and the media's on her side, and she most certainly knows how to work social media in her favour as well. So she's one to watch.
Okay, and Christine, look, the Greens have had some issues because they've had bullying allegations for one MP. They've had exploitation of migrants for another one, and they've had committing crime, shoplifting. It seems to go all against their brief, where they tried to run the high moral ground, didn't it?
Yes, but we all know that that's a facade. I've never believed that that's true. I agree with everyone else about Chlöe, and I think that Jane Shaw is actually a great loss for the Greens, for the more conservative Greens, if there is such a thing. I think she will bring in the left, the extreme left, but I think with him going, they'll lose some in the middle, so maybe it'll balance up. And the really good thing around the Greens, and particularly her, is that a lot of the media are disappearing, so a lot of her supporters won't be there anymore.
Yeah. Okay, everyone's having a bit of fun on this one. I can tell. Oh, Jason's come back and he's got rid of the caps. He says, I know small caps now, so well done, Jason. Chris says, to quote Kermit the Frog, it's not easy being green. Ka-ching. Tony says, gangrene's going to drop off. Lisa says, love your humour. I don't think that's ours, team. Oz says the Greens are sold of their convictions. The rest of the other parties kowtow and pussyfoot around the beat. Like or hate them, they know what they're about. I hate them 100%. I think, Oz, you're absolutely right. Whether you agree with them or not, they stay true to their convictions and they don't get turned off by opposition. We could learn something from that. Rosie says, I'm female, youngish, and I'm not attracted to the Greens. National all the way. Elliot liked your one, Allah. Diversity high has gone wrong. Oh, snap. And Tony's back. Watermelons, green on the outside, red in the middle. Right, I see you guys are having a lot of fun out there. Right, let's move on to the next topic. Is the government coming for churches and faith-based organisations? In the briefing to the incoming Minister for the Community and Voluntary Sector from the Department for Internal Affairs last December, so this is this report. And basically every new minister in the new government gets a report from all their departments. Christine has probably written one of these, so I'm going to go to her first on this question. But in the report about charities to the minister overseeing charities from the Department for Internal Affairs, it made this statement that there needs to be a review of the Charities Act, and note the bit underlined, issues that stakeholders want reviewed include fundamental matters such as charitable purpose. For example, should the advancement of religion still be a charitable purpose with associated tax benefits? Now, I'm one of the first who wants a review of the Charities Act because it's being applied inconsistently, and there's a whole lot of organisations that do the same thing as Family First on the other side, but they're not deregistered. But to have it in a briefing to a new government minister is very concerning. So, Christine, I know that you've written a BIM before, briefing to the incoming minister. Are you when you write that report, what do you think the Department of Internal Affairs are trying to do with that statement? Are they trying to raise it as a possible issue to try and stir things up? Are they being genuine that people want that review? What do you think's going on here?
No, I think they're the leftover public servants of the last regime. And I think that they're trying to introduce that so the new government will make it a potential process that they'll consider. But I honestly think it's a leftover. The public service is so left in Wellington, particularly the hierarchy, that it's just embarrassing to watch and to listen to. And I really think that that's what that was. I don't think this government's coming after churches at all. ACT have said quite clearly that there's a couple they're interested in, but I don't believe it's churches generally.
Do you think they'd carry any weight though? Could they put pressure on in any way, or are they really just writing things down, but they really need the minister on board?
You know that I'm a supporter of this government, but I'm really worried that they don't know how to manage the public service and the public service chief executives and the commissioner. You know, that they're going through a process to save money, and what government departments are coming up with is a joke and a game that they're playing, and this government's letting them play it. You know, getting rid of percolated coffee in the Department of Social Welfare. I think that those public servants need a very strong and clear message from the ministers that are there that this is not a joke, that they expect them to deliver in real time, and they're not going to play the game of the previous government. And I honestly don't think they're doing that. It's soft and it's embarrassing.
Okay, Rodney, I'm just looking at Wikipedia to see if I can find out what you were the minister of. Were you the minister of any area around this type of stuff?
Internal Affairs serves about 14 ministers, and so I had a lot to do with Internal Affairs because they had the local government portfolio. Right. Yes, of course, the government is coming up with churches. All government is a war against civilised living, and all government wants to weaken the citizens and strengthen and empower government. And so what are the institutions that allow us to stand against government and to have a strong community? Well, it's the family and church. And of course, bit by bit over decades, both have come under assault. Now, it might be the case that Mr. Luxon and Mr. Peters and Mr. Seymour won't have anything to do with it. But as Christine's pointing out, deep within the bowels of bureaucracy, this is just, this is just how they think. And they will keep pushing, they'll keep working away, and one day they will win. And there won't be charitable status for churches. It's a constant battle. And the ministers are relatively weak and poorly resourced. I'm not suggesting they should be more resourced, but poorly resourced and lack of information and experience compared to our public service mandarins who actually run the government. And I know Christine and Simon will agree with me. Any department can get rid of their minister within a week if they choose to. That's how minister depends on their department for answers to questions so they don't look foolish, for speaking notes. And it's very easy, and you're very conscious as a minister that while you're in charge of, you don't want to upset them too much because they could end your career.
Okay. Ashley, what do you think? Do you think churches need to...
I'm slightly more ambivalent. Only in the sense that in respect of the original question, which was around the review. I actually don't think it's unreasonable for a government department to, from time to time, encourage ministers to review things. I think the problem I've got with this is that they have singled out the churches and donations to religious causes, as opposed to a more fulsome look at, for example, whether the decision that was made with regard to Family First was consistent with the approach that they've taken to some other organisations which still have charitable status. But the bigger issue, and I agree with all three of the previous speakers, the bigger issue is whether a minister would actually pick this up. I do think, and I hope I'm wrong, but ACT's not the party that it was back when Rodney was the member. And I think there is a risk that if any of the three parties of the coalition were likely to pick something up around this, it would be somebody like David Seymour, who I think has got views that are antithetical to religion and would see this as an opportunity to talk to his base. So I hope I'm wrong in that. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to go through some form of review, albeit I think this one's a little bit directed. But I do think there is a risk in respect of particularly of ACT and the coalition of maybe taking this a bit further.
Okay, Simon, you're recently out of Parliament. Did you ever hear chatter around this area?
Well, I was the Shadow Minister for Internal Affairs, so short answer is yes, but there's really important to say this has actually been talked about for quite a while. This was probably one of the first times it's become quite explicit. So partly agree with Ashley, looking at any, if you will, legislation, regulations, a perfectly fine thing, but yeah, why signal out of the four key charitable purposes, that one. And secondly, I'd probably take a slightly different view to Christine insofar as my experience is you had the civil service, but actually it's been talked about by a number of members of Parliament. In fact, I won't go into details. I've had to fight against it quite explicitly in years prior, where there was a push to remove the status. And there's sort of two drivers for that for your listeners to understand, but they will already. One is just this disdain of religion, this bizarre concept of secularity in a growingly pagan New Zealand. And secondly, it's money. It's money. So, yeah, I think they are coming. Now, whether it's this government or the next 3-6 years, who knows? But I wouldn't be ambivalent on this. It's been talked about before. It's been looked at before. And people get continually misled because they'll focus in on one or two of the big Christian charities, but always forget all the good that's coming from that. So perhaps if I could just quickly illustrate it this way, Bob, once again, talking too much, but a bit of a shout out to the churches and others. If they come after the charitable purposes of advancement of religion, the churches need to shut down their activities for days and weeks and show the Crown and show the community the real cost of what they're doing. In other words, the churches have to find their backbone and demonstrate clearly that they are providing so much more into the community than what the charitable benefits are to the Crown. But anyway, that's me now being belligerent, so I better stop there.
Yeah. Okay, but you're right. I mean, my understanding is that 80% of charitable work in New Zealand is done by faith-based organisations. So it would have a massive dent. Somebody just messaged about the fact that, this Salvation Army, for example, Allah, is this just something we should prepare for but think, look, they wouldn't take a risk? There's just too much electoral damage they would do to themselves?
No, I think I'm probably to double down with Simon's point. It's been in the pipeline for a while. And I think I've just read various things that sort of point to a particular interest and targeting of just churches, not mosques, not other faiths, but Christianity in particular. And this country really prides itself in being a secular nation, which is really unfortunate because a lot of our foundational words can't come to mind because I've got baby brain, are from the Christian faith, and we should be proud of that. And one example in particular of churches and charity doing more than the government will ever is during COVID in the Pasifika community. It was actually churches, Christian churches, I want to highlight in particular, that did all the work that the government couldn't do because for a lot of our conservative communities, like the Pasifika community, church is actually pretty fundamental to who we are as people, as a nation, even though we've got a minor population trying to go back to all the pagan holy gods, which we don't practice in the island. So I think this nation's forgot a lot of its heritage, and a lot of our schools, our hospitals have come, and charitable services have come from churches. So I think we all kind of just need a history lesson, especially if you're under 35. Read a book, not Wikipedia or social media.
Okay, thank you for that advice. Right, let's just have a look at some of the comments here. Family First does a great job promoting the family, backbone of our society, definitely deserves charitable status. Ronnie says, well, I might read this actually because I got an interesting question after it. Ronnie says, I'm working class, qualified builder, own business, dated a Wellington high-up public servant in Parliament. It was like she was from Mars. Christine, is that true? Because you were a high-up public servant.
I was. I don't think I was from Mars. And it wasn't me, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Although I am
that's
married
lucky.
to a builder.
Yeah, well, I thought maybe it was Kim just putting a message through under a different name.
It could well have been. I think he's watching the Crime Channel, I'm sorry to tell you.
Okay.
No, look, I honestly do believe I have still a lot to do with quite a lot of senior people in Wellington, and their politics is absolutely openly very left, and you would never have done that in my time. You did not show who you supported in any open way. They do.
Right.
They absolutely do.
Okay. Bevan says they won't touch any other religion, which would be an interesting point. Andromeda says Bob McRoscry for Prime Minister. He sounds like a good guy.
That's the guy on Facebook who's pretending to be you.
Yeah. Tina says, this looks like one of Simon's kids. Simon O'Connor is who I would like to see as Prime Minister. And Ronald says David Seymour had taxing churches in his recent election manifesto as well. Actually, he had a review and he said it was specifically around sanitarium and mission and state. But when Ate Moala pushed him on that in that infamous interview with David Seymour, he sort of wasn't clear on just how far he wanted to take it. And if a church ran for example, a preschool as part of their church, and the funds from the preschool help pay for the church activities, whether that was caught. So, that was a good question. Okay, team, next topic. Last week was a good week for those opposing the transing of young people. Leaked internal files from the WPATH, which is the Association for Transgender Health, the world one, showed clear evidence that doctors and therapists are aware that they're offering minors life-changing treatments they cannot fully understand. WPATH members know that puberty blockers, hormones and surgery will cause infertility, other complications, including possibly cancer and pelvic floor dysfunction. And a growing number of medical and psychiatric professionals say the promotion of pseudo-scientific surgical and hormonal experiments is a global medical scandal. The problem is, team, that WPATH oversees the guidelines in New Zealand with Te Whatu Ora, and there is a New Zealand branch of WPATH in New Zealand based out of Waikato University. The other good news, though, apart from exposing WPATH for the fraud it is that the England Ministry of Health have said that they're not going to administer puberty blockers anymore because basically they've realised that the decision comes after an independent review, and the government said it welcomed the landmark decision, adding it would help ensure care is based on evidence and is in the best interests of the child. Just before I come, I'm going to come to you, Rodney, because I know you're hot on this issue because of a vested interest in your children. This is the prescription of puberty blockers in New Zealand, and you'll see there's been a massive growth. And my understanding is that we have 10 times the rate of prescription for puberty blockers compared to the UK based on per head of population. So we are prescribing at a very high rate. And so we're still, as Ella would say, drinking the Kool-Aid of gender theory, especially for our children. And so I did alert you guys to the fact that I did want to ask Rodney and Simon as ex-politicians, how do we How do we get traction on this issue so that Ministry of Health, Minister of Health, government actually looks at this international research and says, hey, yeah, things have to change? Rodney, you've got a vested interest because you've got children in the midst of this indoctrination in schools. What do you think needs to be done?
I think we need to find, or we need one to emerge, one of the poor children who have been mutilated and had their life destroyed by puberty. And if we could find such a case, they were prepared to be brave enough, and their mum and their dad, to speak out about how this went down, that would change the debate.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Simon, how do we push back at a governmental level?
I think first, it's not easy. As you well know, you're pushing up against a media that just will not talk an alternative narrative around this. And look, Tavistock's been shameful for years, what's exposed in WPATH. I mean, most of us intuitively know. I mean, at the end of the day, the first thing is let's talk openly and clearly. Puberty blockers are highly toxic chemicals which are being pumped into children. It's child abuse. So let's be really explicit. The second is we've just got to keep talking about it like you're doing now. I know Rodney has on his show. We just got to keep talking about it. And the third, and people who have listened to me over the years will recognize this, we as individuals also need to speak up when the opportunities arise. In other words, we can't simply sit back, if you will, and expect others to do the conversations. So the next time that one of your parental friends says, oh, my kid's transition, and I put them on puberty blockers, challenge them politely, with empathy and so forth, but they need to be challenged to go, really, you're pumping your child full of toxic chemicals to stop normal biology? Do you think that's a good thing? So each and every one of us have to have that courage as well. But it's going to be a slow path here. New Zealand is well behind on this matter.
Ala, you've just gone through the health system with the birth of little Samuel. Did you see evidence of kind of this ideology in the health system?
I did and am seeing it, especially in women's health. Obviously, Bob's coined the term chest feeding. I think the term woman or even mothers, there's this sort of attack on feminine language and personalising language. So, and that's just been happening slowly in the background, which is really, as a new mother, quite daunting because you have just given birth to life and you're like, this is the world this little human being is coming into. However, we have hope in Christ and truth. And I think for parents and families, a lot of it is teaching your children truth. Because how do you identify a counterfeit? You've got to know what the truth is or the true version is. And so, I guess it seems really simple, and it is simple in my mind because children are really impressionable, but they also are really pure and they know right from wrong. Adults fumble that and get it wrong all the time. But, in terms of morality and getting things right and wrong, children know that from a very young age because we know whose image they're made in. And so I think to safeguard against all I personally call it evil, and that's going on and being pushed on our children, and it's a blatant coming for children, is to teach your children truth, and that begins at home, and home is always the first classroom. And so parents need to up the ante and not just sort of let things fall by the wayside or trust the raising of your children to schools, to other people. Raising our children begins at home, and that requires you to step up and speak truth. Whether it's at home, in a public forum, but obviously with grace and in love.
Yeah. Ashley, how do you think that this has gained such a foothold to the point where even medical professionals won't speak up about it?
Well, I don't think they want to speak up about it. I think a lot of them actually buy into it because it's part of that broader woke agenda. But I disagree to some degree with some of the other speakers in that I think there is actually a legitimate pathway, no pun intended, to this, and that is that this issue fits very comfortably within at least three of the coalition agreement inclusions by New Zealand First. So this is not new territory. This is not something we necessarily have to introduce and get advocacy. It could be introduced to New Zealand first by way of the fact that it already dovetails with some of the stuff that they've already called for. And even some of these comments that Peter's made in that earlier speech that you played early in the hour. So I think there's a really strong opportunity to actually have this dealt with. I'm also, I was going to say concerned, but I suppose it's an encouraging thing in a way. When you look at what's happening in the UK and the very strong steps that are being taken, at the very least, there needs to be a media debate around whether or not what's happening over there should be looked at here to see whether or not those same measures should be taken here in New Zealand. So I think there is a pathway, and I think it's going to take some leadership on the part of some Christian organisations to make sure that this is actually put into the public discourse.
Michael, are you seeing evidence of this ideology just in your community work, just in the families you're working with?
Oh, Bob, I think you see this all around the place, really, and it's out there. It's being pushed so hard at schools. Can you just put that graph up again that you had? Because I think that, just if we sit with that for a minute and have a look at it, that rising line is pure ideology. It's not based on any real needs at all. It's certainly not good medical practice. But look at that. There's 450, and that's up to 2022. So I wonder how it would be if it extended into 2023.
Still be growing.
Yeah. So Bob, in response to your question, how do we get traction? I think just keep doing what you're doing, educating, and I know it was a big job for you last year and the last couple of years getting around the country, but yourself and others, just letting people know what's going on, because I think busy parents don't actually understand what's happening in schools, how radicalised it is, and to keep pushing the common sense basic biological message, which is what you're doing, and getting people informed and empowered, particularly at the school level. Keep exposing the inconsistencies, the dangers, and as Rodney pointed out, the horror stories. If we could just even get one or two people that were courageous to say, look, I was mutilated and I believed this stuff, and I went through with these sort of procedures, and look at me now. Yeah. And this is wrong, and I want to tell people about it. That would be great, because the mainstream media is just not going to do that. They are absolutely committed to promoting this social engineering agenda, and but yourself and other groups too, like Sean Plunkett, Reality Check Radio, and many others are starting to get on board with this. So we need some momentum, and just keep pushing truth, as has been said by others. Yeah.
Christine, final thoughts? The concerning part of this is that in this graph, it's predominantly females wanting to be male. And of course, this is just puberty blockers. It doesn't record the cross-sex hormones, which you go on to after puberty. So there's a whole cohort in that group as well. How would you say we push back on this?
Look, I don't think I have much to add from what others have said. I do believe that we'll be the last to give up the current policies we've got, because we always seem to be in any of these issues. I think it's wonderful what England has done. I commend that, but I bet it'll take us years and years and years to get to that point. And yes, we all have to fight it. But as I say often, New Zealand is not really very good at fighting these kinds of things. They're scared that they're going to get into trouble somehow if they speak out. And a lot of things happen for that very reason. Okay.
And actually, just final quick comment, Simon, is that Minister of Health currently is Dr. Shane Reti. I would say that our chances are probably going to be never better than with him. Would you agree?
Well, I'd hope so. It's a matter of getting the minister to focus on it. And I think regardless of what the issue is, generally politicians seem to run away, or most politicians run away from what they deem the cultural wars. They don't want to talk about these things. And that's a discussion for another day about the why. But it's about keeping it front and centre. And I think one of the big things we can be doing is actually putting questions into the minister using official information acts and otherwise to say, what do you know about this? What advice have you received on the changes in actually the UK, but also Australia? Just keep keep pushing and keeping the pressure on. I suppose there's the wider ability, not just to the minister, but all of us have an MP. Go and talk to them, write to them, ask them their positions, send them the documents and ask them for their comment.
Okay, well done, team. We're out of time. Rodney, thank you so much. You can go back to catching speeding drivers with your speed camera. Well done. Thank you, Ashley there. Christine, nice to have you back. Simon, Arla, lovely to have you. Mum, you can go back 10 to little Samuel. And Michael, next week we have Emeritus Professor Rex Ardar, Brendan Malone, Peter Williams, and for the first time this year, hopefully, both Sue Reid and Dr. Sri Trotter. So thanks for watching. Thank you to the panel, and we will see you next week at 8 o'clock. Good night.